Where was Avraham born? One might be tempted to say that clearly it's Ur Kasdim. That's what our story at the end of Parshat Noach, that's where we first find out about Avram and his family, and Ur Kasdim, at least according to most commentators and most of the contemporary scholars, right? Modern scholarship also seems to agree that, at least according to most opinions, that Ur Kasdim is somewhere in today's Iraq, the ancient Babylonia. There were all kinds of, by the way, Kasdim generally, the Chaldeans, right? It's just one of the many nations that lived throughout various times in Babylonia. We know that today the entire that area of Middle East seems more or less uniform to us, right? It's mostly Arabs, mostly Muslims. I mean, some of them are Shiites, some of them are Sunnis. Mass majority of them are Sunnis. So it would seem that the place is uniform, but it's not uniform at all. Of course, everybody knows that there are all kinds of groups there. There are the Kurds, there are the Druzes, there are, I mean, again, one could argue that maybe Druze is a different religion, that's not even Islam at all. I would tend to say that the Druze are not more different from the rest of the Muslims than various Christian denominations that are all considered different Christians, right? Let's say the Greek Orthodox, what we used to call in Russian Pravoslavные, they differ, and a lot of the Eastern churches are quite similar to them. They differ from the Catholics and the Protestants on almost every major issue, except they still believe in the same, the Christian Bible, right, and what they call the New Testament, and they obviously believe in the founder, the main person, or whoever, right? They believe in the main founder of Christianity, right? So that would make them Christian. But they differ on all kinds of important details. They have a different calendar. Their holiday, the equivalent of Easter by the Western Christianity, is often on a different month, even like could be a month later by the Greek Orthodox, and it's not even called Easter. It's called, similar to the Jewish holiday, Pesach, Passover. That's what they call it in Russian, Pascha, right? Meaning, for them, they consider it, the Last Supper, to be a Pesach Seder. That's why they eat something similar to matzah. They call it kulich, whatever, but it's bread that's not chametz. That's what they eat in Greek Orthodox. So I'm trying to say that it's very different from Easter and the understanding of the Western Christianity, that it was all a day earlier, that it has nothing to do with Pesach. It's the day before, the night before, the previous day before Pesach. So therefore, like I said, the whole meaning of the holiday is different for them, and it's in a different month often, or at least could be at least a month later. So would you hold it's the same religion, Eastern Christianity and Western Christianity, right? Greek Orthodox versus Roman Catholic. I mean, it's considered generally under the general name of Christianity. So the same thing with Druzes. They have a version of Islam. They believe in Muhammad. They believe in the Quran. So what wouldn't make them Muslim? I mean, after all, Alawites, right? What used to be Assad before he was thrown from power, the main controlling group in Syria used to be Alawites. So they are a mixture of various religions, which has to be, it's based on Islam, but it's not. It's further, I would say, from Islam than Druzes, and yet. Maybe for political reasons, but the Ayatollahs in Iran accepted Alawites as part of their religion. So the Shiite, at least the Muslims, consider them part of Islam, the Alawites. So if Alawites are considered Muslim, why wouldn't Druzes be considered Muslim? So whatever the case may be, my point is that the society in all of those areas, whether it's Syria, whether it's Iraq, it's under the general Islamic faith with few Christians. There are some Christians there, but not very many. And in a lot of these places, they're discriminated, sometimes killed. So there are few and few of them in that area. So mostly it's Muslims, and those Muslims are divided into various subgroups. The same way as Christianity is divided in many subgroups. So it's not a big surprise. But in a general sense, it's a society consisting of different groups that are under the same umbrella, kind of. So in the old times, it was even more diverse society because they didn't necessarily have all the same religion. There were different groups living in different times. All kinds of empires that were in various areas there, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Syria today, right? All those areas had all kinds of ancient nationalities that dominated at various times. So Chaldean, right, the Chaldeans, the Kasdim, as the Torah calls us, the city where Avram apparently was, is a certain group that dominated Babylonia at that time, apparently. Or maybe even at a later time. It could be at the time of Moshe, it was called that way. We find that with regards to Ramses and other places where it could be that the Torah is using the term that was in the times of Moshe, not necessarily in the times of Abram. Whatever the case may be, Ur of Chaldeans. That's where you would think Avram was born, right? I mean, presumably, that's where the beginning of our story of Avram is, at the end of Parshat Noach. But guess what? Ramban says no. We see that the Jewish people always associate their homeland, their original place from which our ancestors came to the land of Israel. In the land of Israel at that time, there were Canaanites, and they spoke what seems to be similar to today's Hebrew. This is what Ramban writes, and Ibn Ezra. And in fact, the modern scholarship assumes also that the language of the land of Israel at the time was Hebrew. I mean, there are, of course, different versions of Hebrew, somewhat different versions. Phoenician language is close enough, but that's exactly the ancient, the most ancient Hebrew that the archaeologists find the writings of that language, 4,000 years ago and more, in those areas. So the Canaanites were living there. And where did our ancestors come from? Where was the original place where Avram and his family came from? So Ramban says that it's not Ur Kasdim, it's not what today would be Iraq. It's actually what today would be called Syria, and that is the Haran. And the reason Ramban holds that way is because later, when Avram sends his servant Eliezer to find a wife for Yitzchak, he specifically says to go to my homeland, and he doesn't travel. Eliezer doesn't travel to Ur Kasdim. He travels to Haran. So how does Ramban explain then the story in our chapter? So according to him, the story was that originally our family was definitely from Haran. The ancestors of Abram lived in Haran. That's where all of the family came from, and that's where, as I said, Ramban sends his servant. According to Ramban, Avram sends his servant to find a wife for Yitzchak. It was all in Haran. That's in Syria. And similar, by the way, before dying, Yeshua, when he tells a long story of our long moral lesson to our people, we read this during Pesach Seder. What does Yeshua say? That our ancestors used to live, right? Terah, Avraham, Nahor, etc. That they used to live in that area. It seems to be that this was our place. This was our original place. Not Iraq, but Syria. So how does he then explain the fact that our Parsha starts with Ur Kasdim? And specifically it says that Haran, a person named Haran, who was a brother of Avram, he died in Ur Kasdim. He was the father of Lot. Lot will be mentioned many times later in the Torah, so Lot was a nephew of Avram, but the father of Lot and the brother of Avram was Haran. So that Haran, it says, he died in Eretz Moladato, in the place of his birth, in Ur Kasdim. So Ramban says it's only Haran, the last brother, the youngest brother of Avram, he was born in Ur Kasdim, meaning that the family of Terah and his children moved from Syria to Iraq, lived there for some time. There, the last brother was born, and there all the first tests of Avram started, according to Chazal, right? Avram started understanding that there is one God and promoting monotheism, and had problems with the local king, and there are all kinds of legends that he was thrown into fire. Whatever the case may be, they had to move out of there. And that's after the death of Haran. That's when the family moved back to the original city. After the death of a person named Haran with Hay, they moved to the city named Haran with Het. Right? There's a lot of confusion here. The city is named Haran, and the name of the person, the brother of Abram, is Haran with Hay, with like English H. Het is a stronger sound than H. The truth is that most Ashkenazim don't distinguish between Het and Chaf. There are three kinds of similar sounds in Hebrew. Ashkenazim usually pronounce both het and chaf as the German ch. The Sephardim distinguish the two. That het is a more deep sound. It's closer to hey. It's somewhere in between hey and chaf. Chaf is closer to k sound. K. And het is somewhere in between. By the way, I sometimes see Arabic speakers, they also, when they pronounce het, it's clearly similar to the way Sephardim pronounce it. It's a deeper throat sound. So anyway, Haran and Haran. So Haran is the person. Haran with het is the place. So at any rate, after the death of Haran, the family of Terah and Abram and Nahor, they all moved back to Haran, the city in north of Israel, in today's Syria. So that's why, according to Ramban, that's where our ancestors come from. Not like Ibn Ezra, who thinks that we were actually originally from the Chaldean land, from Ur-Kasdim. And on this I'm going to end. If you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.